Okay, so I know that you guys are still kind of working. I don't need you to follow along in on your system with this, but I do want you to just listen quickly to what I'm going to say. But we've got like 40 minutes left in this class today, and what I want you to do is to take a small deviation from what we've done. Okay, so this is a very regulated kind of exercise. Um, but I want you to go back to these base curves real quick. And with this iteration, I'd like to see you explore a tapering of part of your surface, which means that now we're not going to deal with surfaces that are all, either 90 or 45 degrees apart from one another. You might have something that's at a slightly odd angle, and you might also have two surfaces that are blending together, in three different axes rather than just two. So basically what I mean by that is what I showed you before. You can use the scale 1D feature, or however you want to modify these things. I'm just going to show you a quick one right here with scale 1D. Right, so scale one dimension is, or one direction, is just going to take like the width of what this is and then kind of shrink it down. That's how I did it before. Scale 1D, I'm going to go from here to there and then pull it back to the halfway point. Okay, so now if I go back to a layer that I want to work on or something, actually let me just stick on the base layer for now. You can go through the same extrusion process and create a new volume. But this time, because both of your curves are here, you can loft them. Do you guys want to get a detailed explanation of loft? Okay, so the loft command is going to take two curves and just loft them together. So like this one to that one, you hit enter and it creates that connection point, and then it just basically pulls it through and lofts the two profile curves together. Let me just do a quick deviation so you can see its kind of power. If I have it twisted, which you should not do in this case, loft it and it does that. Okay, so loft is very powerful. You use it a lot. So anyway, I want you to go through the process of redoing this, but the loft command is going to be your friend, because rather than, this one is pretty simple and it might save you a bit of time this time. But these two, because now you're tapering from one larger one to a smaller one, these two are going to behave a little bit differently than you would have been able to extrude with the gumball. You can't do this with the gumball. So I can select those two surfaces and loft them like this, hit enter, and it creates that tapered surface. I don't think I've ever really used it, but theoretically, yeah. Yeah, I imagine you could. And then, so this one I can actually go back to my extrusion like that. Now, what the challenge is here is I want you to think about two things. Like the filleting process really isn't going to be that hard. But as a segue into what we're going to experience on Thursday and with the future of your assignment, I want you to now be thinking about, well, if I just take this edge and and start to extrude it, or if I take the overall surface and I basically just scale it up from where it is, how is that corner going to be resolved, right? So you need to be thinking about, is this going to come down to a point there and then go back, or am I going to flatten this out and then use a curve? So this is a little bit of a trial design exercise to resolve some of these questions. And I'm presenting it to you that you need to think through it a little bit on your own, because in the next assignment we're transitioning to a little bit more design, slightly more design, not much. Okay? So you don't have to do exactly that taper. Feel free to take a few minutes to try a few out and consider some. But then by the end of class, I want to see, and you don't have to go to the filleting level of detail unless you have time, but I do want to see that you have a fully resolved new form with a modifier that doesn't just go up with exactly the same extrusion size. Any questions? Is this too much that I'm asking you for, or you think you can handle it? All right, yeah.
Do you still want to do that same type of step?
You don't have to, but it's a good place to start without getting like too crazy. I don't want to throw too many variables at you too fast. So if you keep the two step, with like a transition in the middle, whatever that transition looks like, I would stick with something like that. Okay. To kind of expand upon that, like an example of another way that you could modify this is like not just the width of it, but also like you could change the height so that maybe I'm going to do a scale 1D from there to there and just kind of pull that down a little bit. So maybe this actually there to, well, let me do it there. Oops. Hang on. Curve. Rotate. There. Well, I screwed that up a little bit, but you'll get the idea. So maybe you don't just transition, to a smaller thing, but maybe you also change the height. So when I loft this together to that, it's, super morphed, and then I have like this one here that's going to look really funny right now because I did it wrong, but like that. What's that? No, don't do rotates yet. Because what happens is if you do rotations, then you wind up with warped surfaces. And warped surfaces bring about a whole other different type of modeling exercise. So no rotations, keep it generally orthogonal except for where you change the transition between orthogonal elements.